If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Chaplain Mark Ledbetter joins us this morning here on Daybreak Live. Mark, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
A little spring in your step with the cool weather, huh?
It makes you pause when you come out the door, that's for sure.
No doubt about it. Mark, a longtime minister in the area and chaplain with one of the local hospice agencies, and that brings me to this point. It's a big day over at Curtis and Son this morning, too.
Yes. I know that we have several from our office that are planning to be there this morning. Is it 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. We got breakfast ready for you and juice and coffee. And, you know, the hospice organization overall, I mean, it is an organization that helps so many, not just those that are terminally ill, but those families that need support too.
Well, you will know that the support that we provide is for not only the patient, but also the family as well. It is, people look at hospice, well, you're giving up hope, but you're not. In fact, a lot of people actually have some improvement once they come on hospice. And so we try to dispel that myth, but we're here to support the individual with their certain health issues, and also help the family, support the family in a lot of ways. We have social workers, we have nurses, we have aides can come in and help with personal needs, and then we do have a chaplain program. And then recently I just channeled my energies towards bereavement.
Oh, great.
Bereavement coordinator. I turned 66 and kind of semi-retired, so I reduced some of my work.
The bereavement program, when a family member passes away, that bereavement program is so important to the recovery of that individual.
It is. And we're in the process of developing a support group for this area, Sylacauga area, and the territories that we cover.
Now, which agency do you work with?
I'm with Southern Care New Beacon, across the street from McDonald's.
Okay.
So that's where we are. And we have great staff. We have a lot of conscientious, caring people who are concerned about the whole family as well as the people they serve. So it's people ask me what it's like. I say, well, it's challenging but rewarding.
And there's a lot of great hospice agencies in the area too.
There are. There's several in the area, and we all are providing a very necessary, needed service to our community. Those who have what they call life-limiting diseases, they need to have that special attention, and that's what hospice does. It gives them that special attention.
Absolutely, and of course the hospice recognition breakfast this morning at Curtis and Son Funeral Home at 8 o'clock.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, you wrote a book about your dad.
I did.
And I hadn't had you on since then, but man, that was a unique book and a unique look at a disease that's so debilitating and you know, eventually causes death to the patient. But the families, you know, just God need so much support.
That's absolutely true. My father had Lewy body dementia, which everybody knew him as Charlie, and so that was about my adventures before he finally slipped away from us mentally, cognitively, and it was an adventure, but it is, again, in cases like that, and not just in Jim Dale, just not people who have life-limiting diseases. There's a lot of people who have homebound family members, and the caregivers, they're the ones that really need the support from churches and other agencies, because they're tied down too. They're grieving before the death comes, and so those, you know, somebody could just go in and spell them, let them go to Walmart, go to the barbershop or the hairdresser, or just get them a spell to go watch their favorite TV program without having to stop and think what they can do for their loved ones that they're trying to provide care for. So that's, I guess, my soapbox is for the care providers, because I've been there.
How do they get the book?
Oh, they can get the book. Just call me. Call me. I've got some at the house, or they go to Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon, and it's called Driving Mr. Charlie, a trip down memory lane with a man facing dementia. He had, like I said, Lewy body dementia, and it was a challenge, and there's a lot of humorous stories.
I was sitting here thinking, even as sad as it can be, there's some humor in cases like that you just chuckle about sometimes.
You have to take take it in stride. My dad would argue about baths, and I've encountered a lot of people who actually have had the same experience with their loved ones. Things just begin to shut down. They don't comprehend. You can't argue with them. You just go with the flow.
What's a little funny story you can tell this morning?
Well, I can remember we had that argument about taking a bath until I understood what was going on. But before then, I sent him to the doctor, and I got him, could he have some care coming in at the present, and a stress he needed the hygiene issue. And so we had a nurse came in, and she checked his pulse and get all the physical data she needed. And then she said, "Mr. Ledbetter, I'm here to help you take a bath." And he just looked at her, and he said, "What?" "I'm here to help you take a bath." He said, "From my head to my toe?" And she said, "Yes, sir." He said, "No." So he was a very modest individual. Yeah. That's one story. There's some sad stories, but he would tell me some stories about how he and Mom met, and circumstances like that. The war. He remembers the war.
You hold on to those memories, I guess, too. Those memories that he can share, even though he may not be able to tell you his name day, he can revert back.
He can. And let me emphasize this about writing that book. It was my way of grieving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is part of grief that people need to understand. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, you're going to grieve. It's like a stone sitting on your chest. But it gradually gets smaller and smaller. But part of recovery, on that journey back to recovery, is you make your memories a cherished memory and make it part of your history. And when you can make it part of your history, it makes it more bearable, and you can laugh at some of the things that took place, and you can look back and reflect upon the character that your loved one had and how that impacted you. But for that was kind of like working through some grief for me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like when my mom died. She died suddenly, and I had to move in with my dad. And after I had to get him situated at night, long day, long journey, getting him situated, I'd sit down, I would lay down on the bed, look up the ceiling fan, I'd say, "Lord, did you know my mama died?" And that was my way of trying to grieve through that process with her. So it was different. It was different with my dad. We all have, grief is just a natural response, an emotional response, variety of emotions that people have. But it's a natural process in which we hopefully can recover from the loss that we have. Grief is a loss of anything that's precious to us.
Absolutely.
You can grieve over a house that's lost to fire, or precious things.
Pets.
Pets, especially people who have pets have been long companions, and almost like children. When that pet dies, that individual grieves over that as well. So it's a natural part, and part of what I'm doing as bereavement coordinator and as chaplain is trying to get that message out that grief is a natural thing, but you can recover from it. You never lose the memories. You never dismiss that loved one. But what you do is you transform it into something that is easier to work with. I've talked to several folks. Time does help, but then you have birthdays, you have the holidays coming up. Your whole tradition has been changed, and so you rather than just not doing anything, you change your tradition. In some way, you incorporate that loved one in that tradition through a memory, or sit around telling stories. When you gather around the Thanksgiving table, "Oh, I remember how Dad used to do this, or Mom used to do that," and you reflect upon that at Christmas gatherings. So you keep them present in your cherished memories, and it's not like you're just forgetting. You're enjoying the precious memories that you have.
Brother Mark, as a chaplain and as a minister and wonderful family that Mark has.
Thank you.
He and Rhonda, and there are people that are, I'm sure, watching this morning that have lost a loved one.
Yes. That
are going to be the first year.
Yes.
For their family gatherings, where it's Thanksgiving. That's so right upon us next Thursday.
That's
and,
right.
and they're grappling with that, and
Yes.
maybe what you're saying to them is true this morning, but they hadn't gotten this yet. So encourage them a little bit more.
Well, indeed, this is for you who have, this is your first holiday season without that loved one. You're going to cry, you're going to weep, you're going to hurt, you're going to long for their presence. But as you gather family and friends around you, you help celebrate their life. You celebrate, like I said a while ago, those precious memories. Your life is on pause if it's been a recent death or loss, and your life is on pause. You wonder why everybody else is going on, but you surround yourselves with people that you know who love you and can comfort you and give you strength. You don't stop living. That's tragically, some people just get what they call morbid grief, and they just stop living. You have to adjust. You have to make those adjustments. It's not easy, but what you do is you work through it. And since I come from a faith-based perspective, hey, I lean upon the Lord. God gives me the strength, the encouragement. His grace is sufficient for every need. So you, through prayer, through your personal Bible study, you get back into that routine. You get back into those things. You have this little cloud hanging over you, but you get back into life. You become, again, productive. You have other family members that you can pour your love into. You have other things you can do. Like I said, you kind of, I guess cope is the word I'm looking for. I want a better word than cope, because it's not just simply coping, it is recovering. And so this holiday season, there's a tradition the Jews have at Passover in which they have an empty seat for Elijah. They expect Elijah to come back. Well, you're anticipating, if you're a believer, you're anticipating reuniting with that individual. I guess that's a little far-fetched, but whatever you have to do to keep that memory fresh in your heart and mind, and you pray for God's strength and His grace and His mercy. He says, make your request known unto God with thanksgiving, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind through Christ Jesus.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, Mark Ledbetter, too, is the president of the Coosa Valley Ministerial Association, and he will be the guest speaker at the community-wide Thanksgiving Unity Service at First United Methodist Church. And this is a yearly tradition at Thanksgiving.
This is an annual tradition. This Sunday at First United Methodist Church here in Sylacauga, we're having a community choir that's going to be rehearsing at 5 o'clock with David Simpkins, and he will lead, and then we'll have a service. And it's, to me, it's what's important about this service is you have all these gatherings of different people of different persuasions, of different backgrounds, different denominations, but we lay all that aside so that we can give thanks unto the Lord, because that's what we all have in common, is giving thanks unto the Lord and thanking Him for His bounty. Thanksgiving is also an offering a gift to God in anticipation of Him also making His provisions. So we're coming together. We're going to celebrate through song. We're going to celebrate through the Word. And we're just going to give thanks unto the Lord for what He has done and what He is doing and what He's going to do. God is always active in our lives. He's always working. I know sometimes we can't see it. Sometimes we don't understand it. But He's always acting on our behalf. And we have limited understanding and perspectives. That's why I like about James says, if any of you lack wisdom, let them ask of God, because wisdom is seeing life from God's perspective. So when we are able to come together and give thanks and praise, even though we may have difficult times, that doesn't mean God doesn't love us and He doesn't provide for us. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, and we will be receiving an offering, of course, but this offering is for the benefit of the community. We don't keep it and divide it out. We what we do is this funds, as one, we have a transient fund that we have working through the police department. If there's anyone in the community who's passing through, they run out of gas, we're able to give them some gas. We have resources from time to time that help us put them up in a hotel if necessary and needful. And this is a fund that we're able to tap into to get them on down the road. So we look at this as an opportunity. There's another thing that we do is we provide Bibles for seniors at Sylacauga High School and BB Comer, to seniors who want them. We don't force them on them, but we purchase these Bibles, and we're present at an appropriate time that the school deems appropriate, and we are distributing these Bibles to the students who want them. So this offering that will be received, it will be received for the purpose, these two purposes in particular.
5 o'clock choir practice, I think it is?
5 o'clock choir practice, absolutely. So looking forward to that opportunity, looking forward to coming together as believers and just lifting our hearts, lifting up our voices, and lifting up our hands, if you feel like it, unto the Lord in thanksgiving. And
this is sponsored by the Coosa Valley Ministerial Association, which Mark is the president this year. The event at First United Methodist Church in Sylacauga, 105 East Spring Street, Sunday evening, 6 o'clock. You're invited to attend. Mark wears a lot of hats, and we've talked about a lot of different situations where people need help. And Mark, kind of getting away from this just a bit, but you mentioned something about transient people, and somebody mentioned to me just a couple of days ago, said they've never seen so many homeless people. And you being a part of the police department and the chaplaincy there, and you see that, is there an issue, is there problems with homeless in Sylacauga and South Talladega County?
Well, it's an interesting way to phrase it about being a problem, because frankly, there are people who are homeless because they want to be.
They choose to be.
They choose to be. That's their lifestyle. That's the way they know how to, I guess, be transparent here and honest. They know how to work a system.
Kind of panhandle a little bit.
That's the way they live. Now, we're able to help some people that want the help. We've had one situation where there was a couple who needed help, and we said, well, working through SAFE, SAFE was able to help us to secure transportation to take them to a shelter in Birmingham. And they wouldn't do it because they wouldn't allow co-ed. They want to separate men from the women, and they didn't want to do it, and they were sleeping out in a tent. So what I did is I had some military-grade sleeping bags, and we supplied them with that. You know, that's the best that we could do. But there's the case in Sylacauga is there are homeless people, and they used to be more visible than they are now. I've not seen a lot of them lately. I know where their hangout is. I know where some of them stay at night. But they just want to live that way. So many of them. I'm not judging them on one or the other. That's just their lifestyle. That's the way they choose for whatever reasons that they have this lifestyle. It's perplexing at best to try to figure it out. And so there is a homeless issue. We have no shelters. I mean, shelters, we have opportunities during the cold weather. We can respond to needs during the cold weather, but even when we had warming shelters open, they wouldn't come to those. They would find other opportunities to keep warm.
It's unique, that is for sure.
It is.
Mark Ledbetter, the president of the Coosa Valley Ministerial Association and local chaplain here in town with the Hospice Agency. And I know we've kind of bounced around this morning, and things that we're talking about are very, very pertinent, including the chaplainship. And you know, we talked about, and we closed with this morning, we talked about how hospice is involved in bereavement programs, and there are, I'm sure, across the state of Alabama that are watching this morning, a number of people that are dealing with a family member with Alzheimer's or a part of dementia, and, you know, they're caregivers right now.
Yes, they are.
You know, that loved one is still with them, maybe not in a mental state, but in the physical state.
Yes.
And there's a lot of burden on these caregivers, and maybe as we close this morning, you can encourage them as we get to the Thanksgiving season. We got to get through this, and you can get through it.
Yes, you can, because how do I know? I've done it. Mm-hmm. My sister and I have been able to work through differently. She adjusts differently than I would. But if you're a caregiver, care provider, I do understand what you're going through. I know what it's like to be tied down. It's like some after a prolonged time, they become exasperated, they become tired, they become weary, they become burdened.
You can become angry,
Anger, yes, that's a legitimate response, because they become angry because, one, they have limited resources now. They've lost intimacy. They've lost friends, garden clubs. They have lost church attendance. They have lost support systems that they had so familiar. And so it is indeed a burden. And that's why I have to appeal to us individually. We're going through this. I know that the only way I've made it was because my faith and trust is in the Lord Jesus Christ. That's the only comfort I found. I found comfort in the presence of the Holy Spirit. The Lord said He'd send us another comforter. So I found through the spiritual avenue that God has provided, I found that peace and comfort and assurances. But it is a burden, but I can tell you, you can make it. You can get through it. It's not just surviving. If I had to do it over again, I think I'd pay a little more attention to my dad than just the frustrations that we encountered. And as I learned more about the debilitation of the disease itself, the more understanding I became. And I had to make some adjustments in my attitude. I had to make some adjustments in my priorities. And if we're not able to do this, then we're going to become angry. We're going to become resentful. We're going to want to blame the individual, or we want to blame the family members, or even blame God for our circumstances, because we're not taking consideration that I am in a unique position. I am in a unique position to provide the love and care that my loved one needs. I would try to say, take advantage of any support that you have to help you, not take your place, but to help you work through this period of time, to help you get a sense and just sit back sometimes and realize that what you're doing is so important, because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to be able to do that for you? In some places, finances prohibit going to facilities. I'm not talking about the lack of finances. I'm talking about if your assets are so high, you can't afford to go to the nursing home. You can't go to these.
Catch-22,
yeah. I mean, they don't call them nursing homes anymore. But anyway, that's old school. But and so you have all these issues. That's when hospices come in, because you have social workers who come in and help you identify what your resources are available, what helps are there for you. A lot of times we've been able to help veterans get their benefits. We even had an individual who was a veteran who had lost his medals. And so our social worker was able to work through the VA to get those medals back to them. So, there's so many things that are available out there, those support systems, that it makes it tolerable, but also can make it an opportunity to show the grace of God and the love of God.
Mark, we appreciate you being with us this morning. And,
thank you.
We'll see you a little bit later on over at Curtis & Son.
Looking forward to it.
Honor the hospice agencies in our area. Don't forget Sunday night over at First United Methodist Church as well.
Please come out.
And we hope you have a fantastic day. Mark, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Good to see you. We got a little more Daybreak just ahead, so don't go away.